Hi, I'm Dimitri. I'm one of the people running Michigan TypeScript. We've had a lot of questions recently for some reason about the meetup and how it's all set up and the rig and how we record all the videos. So this is not going to be like your regular Michigan TypeScript video. So if you're here for TypeScript content, I guess click away now. But running meetups like this is something that advanced TypeScript engineers tend to do around the country. We know quite a few. So I thought I would give a video explaining how we do it. First of all, food. You know, food is very important for a meetup, and it's one of the things that gets some people to show up. There's this place around us called Insomnia Cookies, and they make warm cookies and they deliver them, but we've had so much trouble with them. I think they screwed up like 7 out of 8 orders. So first thing on the order here, I'm just gonna go around the room. So I just cook, my wife actually cooks them most of the time, and we just make brownies and cookies. So there's food coming tonight. We usually have, I don't know, sometimes we have pizza to change it up, but there's a really great place called Jerusalem Garden around here that makes these shawarmas and like Mediterranean food. People seem to like that. All right, I have a backup of clothes, so I'm wearing, I'm wearing clothes to be loading and moving stuff, and I get sweaty and gross, and I don't like to have the same exact clothes, so I wear, bring another pair of jeans or something and another shirt. Everything that we have here has tons and tons of backups. So believe it or not, every cable that we have here has a replacement. It has a built-in redundant backup. And that's very important because sometimes things go wrong, and even though maybe nothing changed about the rig in between different months, for some reason just cables get unplugged or they get tweaked a certain way while they're being transported. And so we have backups for everything. So there's redundancy. You're gonna hear a lot of talk about redundancy because that's a big deal to us and how this show is set up. This is some think tank gear, so they have really great stuff, and all the cameras go in here. I'm going to show you the cameras in a second, but we'll start with the audio here. So the audio is basically managed. The mixer here is this Rodecaster Pro 2. So we have the meetup playlist. Somebody made a playlist for us, and we just run that. And basically that comes in here through this Bluetooth input here, and then we have these 2 inputs that are for the actual show themselves. When people show up, I'll talk through that in a second, but we have this Michigan TypeScript thing there. All right, so from the top to bottom, we have our power here. This is it's a power conditioner. It's kind of important for audio. We have another one here just because, but it's really way more important for audio. It can resolve some, you never know what's going on with power basically, so it can resolve some issues. Then we have these 2 inputs. So this one is for the lav mic. So there's a lav mic here that's connected to the person's lapel, the speaker, and up, kind of up their shirt usually. And then we have this second here. This second mic is for the audience. And it's a little weird. It's a little weird to be an audience member and have a mic and have to be talking into it because it's not a big room where somebody else is going to come that helps and does all the chairs and tables and stuff. So I didn't do that yet. But when the room is full and there's people in here, it's a little bizarre because anybody can hear you. It's not that big of a room. But we do that obviously because we produce videos and we want to make sure that people who ask questions have those questions audibly heard through the video. So that's kind of how it works. In the middle here, I guess I'll show we have backups of batteries, and there's always batteries charging for everything. So there's one camera, there are 3 physical cameras, so there's one battery charging there, and we have 2 others that I plug in on the wall over there that are always charging, and everything has redundant backups. Okay, so then we come to this. So again, about redundancy, we have this record button here. When you press that button, it records all of the inputs separately and simultaneously to this hard drive. This hard drive is the first source, and we'll talk about the second and third in a second, but these are the outputs that go. So this is a custom D-series panel, and it has these little connectors, and this is the main outs for the rig. So this rig and this whole show only uses 3 things from the venue. Number 1 is the podium. We call them the 3 Ps. The podium, the projector, and the PA system. So those 3 things are all that we use. Everything else that we bring in, I guess the tables, but everything else we bring in. So we have that. Then we have this connection here. This is a USB-C cable that plugs in here. This charges the laptop during the show. And it also has it has a little dock in there. I don't know if I even really want to show, but it has a dock in there, and that dock has Ethernet on it, and that's what's on the other end of here, and it's connected to the other rack. So all of the things that are here are connected with Ethernet, so they can all be managed on the fly. We don't have to go around and plug something in because sometimes weird things occur. This is a headphone out. It's this first one here. So this is the headphone out, and it goes over here. That's very important. Sometimes you want to be able to monitor what's going on during the show. And like I mentioned, during the show, we you know, I turned down all of the audio channels, and there's actually we're not using the PAs in this venue for anything other than just audio while people are eating or while they come in, just to kind of like set a mood. While they're speaking, we don't have that on. We don't have it on for the audience members either, for, you know, their mic or for them to be able to hear. And so that's important, that I can make sure that the levels are right and everything is going well. All right, then we have direct outs. So these are connected, this orange and green cable here, these are connected directly to these units. So there's actually two outputs that these have. One of them goes to the mixer, and one of them goes directly out to the video rig. So I guess we can start around the back with the video rig and kind of explain what's going on there. I'll try to, I don't know if we're gonna get away with showing this all at once. So maybe we'll just go from one side to the other. So I told you already that we have an Ethernet. This is the audio rack. So this is connected here, and we're gonna talk about the networking in a second. But those converters that are on the front, those recorders, have SDI and HDMI inputs that they accept. And all of them are here ready to be used. But, you know, for the first two cameras, everything is really labeled. So hopefully it's never confusing, like what is actually supposed to connect to where. And there's even a key that was printed up here. But yeah, basically those connections go in here, and they're all hot and ready to be used. If we wanted to switch to SDI, we could. But and then we get to this third channel. So this third channel is for the audience camera that's over there, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the XLR that I told you that comes out of that orange and green cable there, those go into another unit that's buried inside here. And this is an HDMI or an SDI audio injector. So I'll try to put these things up on the screen maybe, but this injector feeds these two XLR inputs into that video feed, and it's recorded with a recorder. So that's a way in which it's recorded completely separate of the mixer. And we've had some problems with the mixer, and that's one of the reasons we're kind of making sure that we have that part redundant. Everything is redundant though. All right, this is the fourth feed from the stage. That's the laptop camera view. And then we have the projector here. So this projector, this cable comes from the venue. These are the three cables, right? So at the venue, they have their own mixer, and they have quite a lot of amenities here, but we don't use them. We just use our own stuff. And so we just plug it directly into their main outs from the rig, and that's how it all goes from there. So another power conditioner here. This is what do we got here? This top one is, I'll show you on the other side, is the actual monitor that we use, the view source or whatever. Then this guy, it has like what's it called? It has a thermometer or thermostat. What would be the word? Anyway, it has a temperature sensor, a temperature probe inside. And right now it's not hot, but it's in a part of the rack that gets most hot. So what happens is if it senses that things are getting hot, it will turn on. There's a lot of equipment in here, and we don't want to ruin it. And overheating can be a real problem, or things will just turn off usually rather than being damaged. Then on the back here, we have our UPS. So let me wrap around, and we can talk around all of that. So the idea with the UPS is you could unplug. So the whole everything here is connected with one power cable. So you could unplug that power cable, and all of this stuff would remain on. And the reason for that is that it's all fed through the UPS. Now, it's always something. This month, for the first time, maybe you saw it on the screen there, it gave a warning that the battery needs to be replaced. It's a stupid thing that these companies do. Before the batteries actually have problems, they have like a timer in there for how many months it's been in use. And this one only gets really used for the meetup. And for whatever reason, it's just decided that today is the day that it needs to be replaced. But you can see we have 18 minutes. So that's way more than enough time. If we lost power to the building, it means we wouldn't lose our recording. And that's important because we usually just press record. We press record in 3 places. We press record here on the ATEM, we press record on these guys, and we press record over here. And I guess I'll talk about the mic on the stage, but we press record and then we kind of walk away from it and attend the meetup. So starting from the bottom, this is the ATEM Mini Extreme ISO version, and that ISO thing is pretty important because if we come up here, these 4 recorders, these are 12G 4K 60 recorders from Blackmagic, and they record everything onto these SSDs. And we basically have it set up so that that's the main source for the show, but this is a backup. So there's a little hard drive back there, and that hard drive is connected to the ATEM, and the ATEM is an ISO version, which means that it records actually 9 inputs. It records one of each of these 8 inputs, and it also has a program view. So, the program view might change. We don't really change it, but there are 9 things that come out of this during the show. I was changing these buttons down here, and that's how it's actually kind of fun. Sometimes you can like really flicker. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but you can really rip through really quickly. There's no latency. When you push one of these buttons, it immediately changes inputs, which is kind of fun. But anyway, we press record there. So that's like our backup. And we have had to use that backup a few times for various reasons. But that's just how it goes. And that's why we have backups. So yeah, those are all recorded there. I realized, did I talk about any of this stuff? So this is the audio rack. It has some of the kind of incidentals in it. And one of the things it has is backup SSDs. So I don't actually need 4 backup SSDs. I really honestly don't need any. I probably need 1. But sometimes I might pull some of these cards and not remember to put them back in, or we might have a problem with one of them, or we might run out of space, which is very rare. But these have a cool feature because they have 2 slots. So if you run out of space on one, there's a special light pattern that shows up here that will warn you to put another card in here, and it will seamlessly jump over to the other card as soon as this one is complete. And it does that without losing any frames or dropping anything. These units are all connected with basically every input that you can find. So there's like, they're ref synced, which if you know the audio world, that's pretty hard to achieve, I think, for this kind of situation, because there are so many different sources that have different reference inputs, including the people on stage. But they're all ref synced and they're all timecode synced, which means, and they're all control synced as well. So there's a bunch of connections back there, but it means that if I press, I'm not gonna do it now, but if I pressed record on just one of these buttons, all of them would start recording at the same time, which is very nice because then everything lines up. You pull those files into your editor later and they all line up. All right, but I'll get to that back in a second. So what do we have here? We have a color card. This is, the cameras are kind of set up now, but it's happened a couple times that we want to really get, we're not color scientists, I think, around here, but try to get things level. When you have a multicam show like this, it's kind of jarring if you switch between different camera views and it's completely different color. So it's just to kind of get it close. We have a backup power here. This is a SSD reader. This is for me. Sometimes I forget to charge my phone. And so I have that in case I need it. A battery charge reader. Sometimes there's weird things that happen with batteries, and there's a lot of little batteries. Those are all rechargeable, but we have this game here. This is 2 rooms and a boom. This is like a little board game. It's really important when you have a meetup to have things that are fun that people can do. This is a really fun game. I'm not sure they print it anymore, but it's not really a board game because there's no board, I guess, but it's really fun. There's a president and a bomber, and it's like a social deduction game. So if you've played like One Night Ultimate Werewolf, it's sort of like that, but a little easier to understand. And it's 20 minutes is quite a lot more than it really takes. It doesn't take 20 minutes to play. So that one is a really fun thing, and we usually try to do that after the event. So yeah, that's cool, and people like that. And well, most of the things that were in here, these are cases for the mics. I already talked about the mics. We have this guy for the stage. We'll talk about that in a second. A compact flash reader, an SD card reader, in case we need it. We usually don't. All right, so that's that. I didn't talk about this monitor. Okay, so the monitor is a supersource that's fed from the ATEM, and it's nice to be able to see what it's actually seeing and what it's recording. Of course, we can always see the program view because that's the thing that shows up on the stage. I didn't talk either. We have this little backdrop here that was programmed in. So it's kind of neat that when when somebody comes into the room and they see everything for the first time, this is sort of what they see. Like I said, there will be more chairs and tables set up. But yeah, we try to have that on and remember to use that. Sometimes we forget, but oh well. All right. We have Z6 II here. So the Z6 IIs basically run the show. And I think it's a 105 millimeter macro lens, which is funny because we're not using it in a macro view, but this is a really wonderful prime lens. It's not expensive as some of these can get either. And at least as prime lenses go. So this lens is really fantastic, and this is our main shot. So when somebody's standing there on the stage, this is the main camera. And it's really important that this camera is working because this is one of the most important views of the whole thing. It's very hard to do those like picture-in-picture views if this one isn't working. And also, you might notice that that's a bit of a weird frame to have things set up for. We almost never just use this frame. We zoom in because ultimately people move around a little bit, and you want to put some kind of motion tracking on the camera so that when they're moving around, we can, be sure that they're centered in the frame. So it's nice to zoom out a little bit. Then there's this one. The red there is from focus peaking. It's just helping me see where things are where things are focused. But this shot is pretty important because, people people move around a lot sometimes. Some speakers, some do and some don't. But people move around the stage a lot. And sometimes people will move from the podium and they'll come like point to something on the screen. Well, if we're just framing right here with the close shot and they do that, they're gonna like leave the frame. So we need to be able to cut to this view while they're doing that. So it doesn't get used a ton, but when it's used, it's really important. So that's a shot that may seem like overkill, but for at least the kind of thing that we try to do, it's pretty important. All right, so the food's not here yet, but when people walk in, I guess I didn't put it back, but when people walk in, they see the Michigan TypeScript thing over there. And this is just a thing I made that's the SSID. I guess it's technically an ESSID. I don't know the difference. Tell me below. But whatever it is, ESSID for the venue, and they can scan that. That's like some special Wi-Fi thing that if they scan that, it'll put the Wi-Fi in their phone. We have little stickers here. We have Michigan TypeScript stickers that people like to put on their laptops. Ingest is a local company. We encourage local companies to rep their stuff as much as they can. We've had a few others in the past, but we usually run out of them. So Ingest gave us a bunch. And then we have these TypeScript, holographic TypeScript stickers, which are pretty cool. These are gibbets, I think they're called. I don't know, don't sue me, Crocs, but if that's what they're called. But they're little decorations that go on Crocs, which I think are hilarious and ridiculous. So people can grab those. These are name tags, and they have a marker here. So we encourage everyone to put a name tag on, and we try really hard to help that happen. It's, if you're meeting people for the first time, it can be very helpful to see their name. I was really excited about printing them in black. Everything we have is dark theme for the branding of the Michigan TypeScript or whatever. And I tried really hard. I had this company, I didn't pay for it. They sent me a sample, but it just doesn't work to print this kind of thing in black, unfortunately. You can't focus, I don't know why. It doesn't work to print this kind of thing in black because you end up needing to use a paint that's like vinyl, it's not like paper. So you end up needing to use some kind of vinyl or some paint marker on there, and the paint markers are just, they don't dry fast enough, so then they get like smudgy, and I don't know. So we just have them out there if people want them as stickers because, I don't know, they were free. So, yeah, another thing is, you have a venue, it's important to be nice to them. So we have these two cables that run here. These are the two, I'm gonna talk in a second, but those two cables are for the two sources that are there on the stage. We put this little guy in place, and I wish it were a little longer, but it's just to keep people from tripping. And that may seem like a silly detail to focus on, but I think that venues care about, they notice things like this. Like we try super hard to take immaculate care of this space and always leave it cleaner than we found it and really be on top of that part. And venues seem to really appreciate that. We've had this at a couple different places before, and it's just, this is the best one by far. Cahoots is a co-working space. So they have a lot of really good success stories of companies that came in here as just a few engineers, and then they grew and then they grew out of the co-working space eventually. And you can tell that they're the real deal here because they view that as a huge success. They view losing customers as a huge success, which means they are really passionate about what they do, but they provide a really cool service. And yeah, we try to just be respectful to that. And obviously what we do is synergistic with what they do because we're bringing engineers. All right, here we are. I took this little guy apart. So I knew I'd be taking this little video. So there's little 4 screws that pop this off. But this is a little rig that I built that everything is cinched down and managed. But basically there's this camera here on the stage, and then there's the HDMI for the speaker's laptop. And both of those are converted to SDI, 12G SDI on these runs. So these runs are, very long, and HDMI would not work over that distance. In the very beginning, we used HDMI over Ethernet, or 10, I guess it's technically 10 base T. We use HDMI over Ethernet connectors, and that was not really such a great situation, and they're very touchy, I guess I would say. This little fan ended up not being as important as I thought it would be, but it fits in there perfectly, and it works, and it's mounted in there. That's to keep these guys cool. This show could get set up like hours and hours before people actually even get here, and then we might have speakers for 2 hours. That's a long time of these guys just being on inside a little box, and it's enclosed. There's little vent holes, but it's not enough, I think. So the idea is to just keep these from overheating. And yeah, power sources. So that's power for these 3 things, the fan and the 2 converters. And then we have a power source for the camera here. So another Z6 II. I didn't talk about that lens, but I think it's a 24 to 70. It's a kit lens, but it works really well for what it's used for. Okay, so then we have this one. This is a 24 to 200. This is a fantastic lens. Usually super zooms are terrible lenses, but if you think this is something to scoff at, then you're small-minded or you haven't tried it, because it's actually a fantastic lens, and it has, I don't know, I don't want to get into that, I suppose, but it's a great lens for what we're using it for, and we usually keep it really wide. I have a 21 millimeter Z lens that sometimes we'll use. Tonight, there's not going to be a ton of people, but sometimes, I mean, we have at times filled up this entire room, like every single chair and every single, well, anyway, I won't show you the chairs and stuff, but there's a lot more chairs. Oh, howdy. So, yeah, there's a lot of chairs, and we've had like literally every single one of these chairs before out and used for the meetup. So anyway, that's what's going on there. So then for this particular camera, this is the view of the audience, and that's important because if somebody is actually asking a question, then we want to be able to show them in the frame with the mic asking that question and kind of put them picture in picture, side by side with the speaker here on the stage. So that's kind of important, and it's a little weird. It's not something we have a good answer to. It's a little strange. I would love to have a way to do that and have a cohesive video produced of people asking questions that didn't involve them feeling like they're being viewed all the time. But I guess the way we work around that is we try to have 1 month a year where there's no cameras and we talk about something saucy like, workplace disputes and resolving social conflicts and stuff like that, where people feel like they can come and really let loose on their employer in a safe, comfortable place where they're not going to be quoted later or it's not going to be recorded. So I don't know, that's not really a great concession, but that's what we do to try to make it, I don't know, there's lots of skills that go into being a software engineer, and we just want to provide those resources for people. All right. So we have HDMI that's connected to the box down there, and it comes out of the box down there. So HDMI, and I have a converter here that, depending on the guy tonight that's coming to speak, needs USB-C. So we have that always ready to go. But in that little bag that I showed you in the beginning, there's tons and tons of converters. We can do mini HDMI. We can do just full-size DisplayPort, mini DisplayPort, Thunderbolt, all kinds of different things. But almost always people just need USB-C. We have it here, so oh well. And then we have power. It might not seem like something that is super important for a short talk if somebody's coming up to even give a lightning talk, but everybody seems to like to use it. And it can be pretty important when you're giving a talk. The demo gods need some persuading sometimes, and it can be really nice to have this part accounted for, so you don't have to worry about your laptop being thermal throttled while you're giving a presentation. So, all right. And I said redundancy. So this is the third layer of redundancy. This is a separate mic that's battery powered that I turn on, that's just here on the stage recording the whole night. And it would be hard to sync it, but it would be hard but not impossible to sync it. But the reason for that is that once upon a time, we had a situation where this guy had a firmware update. And there's a very important setting buried in here, and the setting is for multi-track recording. So what happened is we had this, is it even playing anymore? I don't know. Anyway, we had audio playing for the venue, but like I said, I turned it down all the way, turned it off so that nobody hears that while there's speakers going on. But I didn't pause the music because I don't need to. It's recording multi-track. What's the difference anyway? I'm not going to use that track anyway. But it wasn't recording multi-track after that firmware update. The setting got flipped, and what happened is it hard pressed. It just gave me a stereo output of the whole show, and it hard pressed the music into the feed of the speaker, and we lost the whole night. We had 3 people speak that night, and we lost all 3, which was a very sad situation. But I tried like you wouldn't believe to try to recover the audio because it was kind of there and you can hear it. There's a thing in audio theory called null canceling. So you could theoretically play back the same audio at an opposite phase and remove that and get just what's left. But the problem was there's things like random noise introduced by something called dither. But more than that, I think I was playing from Spotify, and I don't have exactly those tracks that were playing at that time at Spotify. There's variable bit rates involved. And although I know that it was like Herbie Hancock and things from the meetup playlist, okay, well, I don't have those tracks exactly bit for bit what played, so I can't play the reverse of it. And we just ended up giving up and losing that whole day, which was very terrifying. So that's part of what that's there for. Let's see, I think we covered a lot. I mean, there's this guy here. So this is a backdrop. Very proud of this backdrop. I designed it. Yeah, well, this backdrop is the worst. It is the worst. It's terrible. It wrinkles a lot. And, it may not seem like a lot. I don't know if you can see on the camera right now those wrinkles. But those wrinkles, because of black levels, we try to make that that's there actually like black, like 0, on the RGB scale, black, 000? Well, because it fades into the rest of the picture better and whatever, that's the point of having the backdrop. Well, the problem is when you do that, you start to be able to see these really pop out, these kind of deformations in it. And so one of the guys at Michigan TypeScript had the idea, he knows a good tailor, and so he brought it to the tailor, and the tailor had the idea, it's just to say, like, what can we do about this? Is there some kind of starch we can press this with, or is there some way? It's made of plastic, right? It's polyester, so there's not really a great way, but he came up with this, which helped so much. They put these little Velcro straps all up and down, and the Velcro straps kind of like pull it taut, and that's been really, really helpful. But there's a different problem you may have noticed, and it's not a factor of me jumping around here on the video. The different problem is that, like, see that? Well, it's touching on the ground down here. So all of that distance is how it's out of square. And we have tried so hard. We've had like 5 people, engineers, just trying to figure out how to get that to be square. And we've all given up. Basically, I don't know, it's impossible. Everything you can think of, from making one side shorter and one side taller, to making the top shorter and the bottom taller, whatever, every combination, flipping the whole thing, flipping it like this so it's using the other sides. Maybe there's something, maybe these poles are bent, they're not. We've tried everything we can. And I think the reason is, in one person's theory, is because it's actually a trapezoid. If you measure with a tape measure from the threads of the bottom to the threads of the top where it was sewn together, it's actually taller on, I don't remember which side, it's taller on one side than it is on the other. And that causes it to have that bow, which is very problematic. So what we do is, I don't usually do this part. Aaron, who's gonna come here in a little bit, uses this, I have it filled up for him, this what do you even call that? Steamer? I don't know, it gets out all of these wrinkles. So you can see it back here a lot better, how wrinkly it can get. And, when you have a big gash wrinkle like that, it doesn't take more than a few minutes to get them out, but this thing is such a hassle. The problem is, it's a great space, and we have this big red door, and you might notice from our earlier videos, that was the door that was featured, and there's like a little green room back here, which I've always thought would be kind of cool. Like, how neat would it be if we had a speaker that was really important and well-known, and he or she just came out right there before the talk and jumped onto stage here and began the talk? That would be so cool, right? Anyway, we've never used it like that. But that big red door, the problem is the branding of Michigan TypeScript is this, like, well, blue and green, and that red just does not go well with that get up. So we wanted to have a nice cohesive look with the videos, so we made this backdrop. I would never ever recommend doing it again. But yeah, that's basically the gig. I didn't move it yet, but someone else will come help and move this. We have a cooler here with some we have, this is Vernors. This is a Michigan drink, so local. It's like a ginger soda, I guess, something like that. So people like that, and Coke and Arnold Palmer, but mostly water. Very important to have water. I don't know, some people don't think about that, but I don't drink anything but water, and there's lots of people like me. When you have an event, make sure there's water, just water, regular water, not sparkling water, just water. Just make sure water is available. But yeah, I can see it's getting a little darker, so the meetup's gonna be coming around here. Some people are gonna start showing up in a little bit. But I just thought I would make this video and explain kind of how we do it. Lots of people do it different ways, and I understand you may think this is extreme overkill, and in a lot of ways it is, but the thing is, when you have something like this happening and you make these really nice professional videos, it attracts a certain kind of talent, and it attracts more people to come speak. And getting people to come speak is actually the most important thing about a meetup like this. I think it's not getting people to attend, because people will or won't attend on their own accord. I don't think it's really fair to try to force people or like cajole people into coming. What's better is if you give them something that they want to come see. They can give them a conversation that they want to be a part of, or things that they want to talk about or hear about and grow from. So, it's important to be able to do that. And when speakers see the videos that are produced from the meetup, the thesis is that they're going to be more interested in coming to speak. And in fact, we've had lots of people make those connections and come over and speak because of that. And people who have come, we love to have people, sometimes people in the comments give us a hard time about Michigan companies shilling their company in a talk about their company's products, which doesn't make sense to me, but we really encourage people to come talk, Michigan companies, to come talk about their products and what they do and what they offer. That's important, and that's a big reason why Michigan TypeScript exists. But more than that, we want to have a sense of community. So I told you that we do the 2 Rooms and a Boom board game. Usually, actually, we do that not here, but in another place. So if I bring you around here, it's very close. Right there, there's this place called Bloom, and it's I guess you can say it's a bar. It's more of like a cafe, I think, but they only serve mead and beer and drinks like that. But the lights are on and it's bright and happy, and they have board games and stuff. And so we try to filter people over there after. And that's one of the important metrics, I think, about whether or not a night is successful, is how many people get interested to come over and chat and hang out. Obviously some people may drive from far away. They might have kids. They need to go home and put them to bed or do whatever. So we don't judge anybody if they can't stay, but we try to encourage people to stay, because those connections that happen at a meetup are very valuable. We've had, I think, 3 people, definitely 2 people who have found jobs by coming to the meetup in the last year. And that's a pretty good success rate, I think. And whether they meet their, future boss, or whether they meet a, would-be future colleague or something like that, they make connections here that end up turning into jobs for them later. And that's a pretty cool opportunity to be able to have something like that. So we try to provide that. I think it's like a, thing. We don't have any sponsors. We've had, Ingest paid for some pizza once or twice, and that was very appreciated. But we don't do any sponsorships. Nothing about Michigan TypeScript has any money involved like that. Like, we don't ask any company to pay us, and no company has ever paid us for any video whatsoever. All the videos are demonetized from the start, which probably hurts the YouTube viewership, because YouTube doesn't like to send people videos that they know in advance cannot be made money from. But whatever the case may be, we try to provide that service because we want to provide these advanced use cases for TypeScript engineers who are at the top of their craft. And that's something that we want. There's not that many resources for people like that. So we try to provide that. And running a meetup, like I said, and so wrapping up, running a meetup is something that, if you're a high-level TypeScript engineer and you're passionate about what you do, you should start a meetup. I mean, it's a good thing to do, to kind of get to know your area and get to know people around you and create that kind of sense of community. It's really cool. And lots of people do these kinds of things around the country, and for many, many years. I used to run a meetup in Detroit many years ago. And so this kind of evolved from that. And there was another one, Southeast Michigan JavaScript, that kind of emerged in a certain sense with Michigan TypeScript. So some of the people working on that work on this now. But these things come and go, and Michigan TypeScript will definitely not be around forever. But while we're here, while we're doing this, we try really hard to make it something worth coming to, make the food good. It's very important. I don't mind people paying for the food, because we try to go over budget as much as possible on the food, because I want people to feel good about coming here and have just good feelings and full bellies all around. So yeah, that's the meetup. I don't know if there's any other thing that I missed or I didn't. Maybe there's something I glossed over. So if you have any other questions, I guess ask them below. And it's hopefully something you can learn from. And if you have suggestions for us, we would love to hear that too. If you have something that you think we could do better, or some little thing we missed, or some, microconverter that can be better put in place of something we have now, we would love to hear about it. Let us know below. All right, bye.